Welcome, everyone. Nice to be with you. Yes, yes. I just like to remind everyone we're right in the middle of a weekly series where I explore a different quality of divinity each week. Last week was a pretty tough quality that we explored. And this week is one that everyone loves and that we all tend to chase after. The things that can sell a lot of books or a lot of tickets or to evening talks or to retreats or whatever. But this week we're going to examine an ecstatic, merging, holy, unifying love. And so I invite you just to find your seat right now, feel into your body. And I'm going to speak about this love, this deep connection. And so some of you may have been on a long retreat before, and maybe on a Saturday night, they got out the harmonium and the tablas, and they started singing kirtan. And as you opened your heart, you may have found yourself losing all boundaries, just falling into this merging, nourishing love of the divine, a love so deep and so ecstatic that you lost your sense of self. It felt as if there was no division between you and God. Between you and God. Now, most of us, when we're young, we know that this is a possibility. We know it, we feel it intuitively. And one of the ways we chase it is we chase it in a relationship. You know, we fall in love with Rico Suave or Susie Cream Cheese, whoever it is. We go chasing after them. You know, Katy Perry, the pop singer, she wrote a song. I can't remember what it is, but most of her songs are about this, you know, like Taylor Swift, you know, these types of songs. But Katy Perry had this song, I think it was called Teenage Romance, maybe Teenage Dream. I live in a house of girls, and so occasionally songs like this come on the music box here. And it's just this feeling of just totally giving of oneself, surrendering oneself. And it's, you know, it's the knight in shining armor, the damsel in distress. You know, it's in our fairy tales. It's been in our culture for thousands of years that someone is going to come and save us. And so this is how the ego relates to this. And so at the heart of the ego, buried deep in the ego, is a seed of truth. And so intuitively, the ego knows there's something much greater, a love that we can melt into. But of course, our egoic nature projects it all out onto a physical being. But as we deepen and mature on the spiritual path, we project this onto God. And, you know, again, if you're at one of those Saturday night kirtans after yoga class and it's a full moon and your heart is open late in the evening, you know, as the singing and the vibrations and the grace intensifies, you just might find yourself, you know, eyes rolling in the back of your head, kundalini flowing up the spine, and just falling into this state of bliss, this state of merging love. And so I invite you right now just to feel into your hearts and just ask, do you know this? Do you know this bliss? Do you know this freedom? And if you're having a hard time right now, I invite you just to soften, a little loosen up, let go of any struggle. I invite you to open to this possibility, this potentiality of meeting God in this way. Meeting God in this way, where you're allowing yourself to merge into the one heart, flooded with bliss, no walls, no division, no story, no problem. Can you allow yourself to open and receive this glorious manifestation of the Most High? Can you receive this greater aspect of your own divinity? And so it's going to require that you don't hold on to any pain. You don't hold on to anything from the past, but you allow yourself to melt and to become one with this beautiful, radiant, flowing grace from a brilliant, let's say yellow lotus flower, just shining, opening, embracing you. And again, if this is a stretch, I invite you just to allow this to be a possibility, to allow your heart to open, to give yourself permission to be disarmed by the love that's here. I'm feeling a tremendous amount of love and bliss, even just speaking about this. And so, you can continue opening and softening and melting. You might feel your heart beginning to warm, open, and to really let go of any walls, to truly let go of any division. It's going to require that you surrender your thinking mind. You surrender any sense of you being a separate object, separate individual. And to open your heart like a flower in the springtime, opening, receiving the warmth of the sun, the warmth of grace. And as you join me in opening this way, for those of you who are really open and really sensitive, you might begin to feel like this nectar-like amrita. It's a form of bliss, which is really juicy and delicious. And again, it's okay to smile. I know last week we had a really solemn week as we connected to a different truth. But this week, I'm inviting you to be disarmed, to trust that it's safe to open and receive what's here. For what you are receiving, not only is it the grace of God, but it's also an aspect of your own self, an aspect of your essence, where you are merged and unified with the radiance and totality of life. You don't need to think, you don't need to do. It's okay to be a little bit childlike and innocent. Childlike and innocent is one of the doorways to receiving this. And so if you have your eyes closed, you can keep them closed. You can open them up if you like. And again, if you're being serious in any way, that's not going to help you here. You're not going to experience this type of grace if you're serious. Again, we have to be radically childlike. When the child feels utterly safe, they can just throw themselves in the lap, of the mother or their father and just be held and loved and nurtured and supported. And so this is the type of love, this is the type of experience where you crawl up in the lap of the divine. You can just, be so trusting and so open, so receptive. Or you fall asleep nursing on Amrita. Nursing on Amrita. And so anyways, I wanted to bring this forward. Again, it's such a stark difference to what we spoke about last week. I know many people contacted me after last week saying, wow, that was a really incredible teaching and a tough teaching. And one of the things here that I'm inviting for all of us is for us to really expand our consciousness and begin to know what God is, begin to know what we are. What we are. So sometimes people just want to know God or truth as peace, just as spaciousness, just as emptiness. And again, that's a wonderful realization. And the way that I'm trained and the way that I'm realized is I came to know that emptiness isn't enough for life here on planet Earth. Emptiness isn't enough. We also want to know love. We want to know bliss. We want to know freedom. We want to know strength. We want to know truth. We want to know how to trust deeply and merge and unify and be nourished by life. And so right now, as we're coming out of, this pandemic, I'm saying we're coming out of it. I'm not sure if this thing will ever end, but we're coming out of it to some degree. And we've all kind of, it's winter and most of us have dried up, from loneliness and from emptiness and from isolation, from depression. And so when we suffer from these things, it's important to rebalance, to reconnect. I'm going to say something graphic here, but to allow yourself to suckle on the bosom of God, of grace, of the Divine Mother, to receive nourishing, warm support. Now, sometimes when we've been beat up by life, our ego shuts down, in a similar way if we've just been rejected romantically. We tend to shut down and say, I'm just going to go at it alone. I'm just going to do life by myself. And, if the lockdown's been long for you, sometimes we get into this kind of vibe of, we're just going to do it alone. I don't need anybody. And what you find is when you say things like this, when you think in this way, you close the doors of your consciousness and your world becomes quite small, quite limited. But when you open to this merging, unifying love that I'm describing, you begin to experience the opposite of closing down. You feel as if all things are possible. You feel like all we need is love. All of life is made of love. Made of love. And again, for some of you, when I look around the room, with the serious look on your face, you may not be joining me in this, that all the life is made of love. All you need is love. Not ready to join the Beatles in that one just yet. Again, part of mastery is being able to, at will, open to these different aspects of God and different aspects of self. Again, one and the same. God and self, one and the same. And if you find yourself lacking in this department, if you find yourself like the Grinch, it's okay, invite you to smile and trust and forgive yourself for being human. And try again. Try again. In Buddhism, they have this teaching, like if you fall off the path, if you fall out of mindfulness, begin again. Just begin again. Begin again. Now, the ego, when it's been hurt, it says, I don't like to get hurt. So I remember the hurt and I shut down and I guard. And so when we play this game of getting hurt, which we all will do, we'll all be hurt at some point. We get hurt and then we shut down and we guard. Then it's going to be really hard to step into this. I had a moment of this, not too long ago where I was having a lot of trouble with my body, with breathing. And again, I live in a house with just all these ladies. And sometimes when the moon is just right, they all gang up on me. I don't know what it is, but when the moon's just right, sometimes they all just come at me. And, so this was happening one day. I was driving the family into church. There was a church service, mass. And then afterwards, there was going to be a function at my daughter's school. And I pulled up right in front of the church and was going to drop off the family and go park the car. And my wife's saying, I don't like it when you drop us off. I want to all walk in as family. And I was thinking, gosh, I was trying to be polite. I was trying to be a gentleman. They've been giving me crap all day long. And now they're giving me crap for dropping them off in front of the church. And so I just kind of said, okay, and, pulled the car into a parking spot. And I was just feeling a little grumpy just from not being able to breathe and getting beat up just by emotional difficulty from people giving me a hard time all day. But when I sat down in the church, again, I was feeling hurt. And just the atmosphere of the church had so much love in it that my wife, she just placed her open hand on my thigh. And I grabbed her hand and I held it. And immediately we were back in love, back in connection. And so all of us, we have a choice to hold on to our difficulty, our angst, our story, whatever it is. We have a choice always to hold on to the past and say, life isn't being kind to me. And so I'm going to shut down and stay shut down, or I'm going to begin to open. And in a funny way, I can say I just kept opening my heart and opening to her and opening to my child. And, I was still suffering just physically with my body. And later in the evening, in a funny way, I just because I just made this commitment, I said, keep opening and opening and opening. And then later that evening, I was out on the dance floor in the gymnasium doing the two-step with my wife and my little girl and having a good old time. And see, sometimes when the ego gets hurt, it thinks that, oh, the day's over, this is ruined. And we can really hold on to that. I've seen people, you give them a little comment and they just shut down. And it's like, that's it. It's ruined. I want to hold on to this pain. But part of being masterful is being inwardly flexible and fluid and being willing to forgive and to open again. And when you have this fluidity of openness, oftentimes you'll find that God herself will come to you and start bringing you this transmission of Amrita. Just out of nowhere, you might find this merging love and this feeling of just utter sweetness and pleasure coming into you for no apparent reason. And so when we're young on the path, again, we go to the bhakti yoga class, we sing the kirtan, and we're really, efforting and opening. And we cut that pathway. But later in life, later on the path, you might find that God is coming to find you, to flood you with His grace, to flood you with His light, to flood you with His bliss for no reason. And I really want to emphasize that, for no reason, but the sole fact that you are loved. You are loved. Often in the beginning of the path, we think we need to be worthy to receive God's love. And what God is telling you, telling all of us, is you are a child of God, so you're already worthy. You don't need to be good. You don't need to perform. You don't need to say the mantra 10,000 times or do the those Tibetan Buddhist prostrations, 150,000 times to open to this. I can't tell you how many nights I experienced this, how many Sunday mornings I experienced this in the presence of my teacher. And always just melting into this. And, in a shadow way, I'd melt into this and just feel like, oh my God, I am utterly liberated. This is enlightenment. This is true freedom. And then, as you can guess, 2 or 3 hours later, you may find yourself, stumbling over your ego again. And someone wrote me a question about that tonight, which I'll get to here in a moment. But, what's important to realize about all the different qualities, all the different ways we can experience the absolute, it's important to realize that each of them have a very subtle shadow, a subtle deficiency. And of course, it's not totally true that they're deficient in any way, because when you step into these experiences, when you begin to open to these aspects of self, that's when they're beyond an experience. You find this within you. You'll notice that a shadow can develop, or a deficiency. And it's not truly a deficiency, because when you step into this all-inclusive merging, unification, it feels as if the totality of life is you, and that is the truth. And it is the truth that the totality of life is love. But in a human way, in a complex way, as human beings are complex creatures, you might find that love doesn't heal everything. Sometimes you need time, and you need space, and you need strength. And so one of the things that I found, with this quality that I'm speaking about tonight, is when we merge into it, we can become radically ungrounded. We can make poor life decisions. This is when, if we go and visit the guru and we give our 401k or we give our total inheritance, to the teacher or to the sangha or to the fund or whatever it is. We can give up all of our belongings. We can fall in love with someone that we see at bhakti yoga that night and think that they are the most perfectly enlightened human being ever, and that our relationship will just be one of bliss and freedom. We can actually become arrogant and aloof, just walking around saying all is love, when there's also, starving children. Starving children, or people just maybe right down the street dying from the opioid epidemic or something. And it, might not be fully truthful to say all is love when your neighbor is, dying of addiction. And so anyways, I just want to point this out because oftentimes people can get really high on spirituality. I certainly did. I certainly still do. Get really high on grace, on light. And again, these are my most pleasurable moments with my teacher. My most pleasurable moments, like say, even like visiting Almaas, the great avatar from India. Might be 2 or 3 or 4 a.m. and I'd be up singing and chanting, with her and 1,000 other people or 10,000 other people, overwhelmed with bliss. And we can get lost in that. We can get attached to it. In a sense, the whole point of this type of love is to get lost in it, to forget oneself. And there's a quality of nourishment that comes when you can fully forget your life and just melt and merge in utter blissful unification. It's radically nourishing to your being. And, when I look around the room and when I feel into the last 2 years, I know that everyone on the planet could use a big dose of this. Could use a big dose of this. And so anyways, life can still be hard. You can still get COVID after going to bhakti yoga and merging in love. Bills still need to be paid. Children still need to be put to bed and parented. So I'm just going to lead into a question that came in through email that connects to this. And then I see a couple people have their hands up. This is from Nick. Hi, Craig. I had a question about the link between realization and liberation. Do you believe they are connected? Of course. Since Kundalini woke up in me, I have had many of what I consider profound moments and experience of realization, which left me feeling liberated from my lower self. Here's the key words here: for a period of time. And not much time after these experiences, I found myself realizing that I was far from liberated. And this is humbling on the path. This is humbling when this happens. Very confusing for many people. But I can say that after it's happened enough to you, you kind of see, oh yeah, of course. Of course, there's still more work to do. Of course, like again, human beings are complex creatures. And so, I'll say a couple things about so true liberation would mean that the thing no longer arises again in your consciousness. That it no longer rises again in your consciousness. Now, for most of us on the path, when we fall into this deep merging unification, we might call this spiritual realization. We might just call it a wonderful spiritual experience. And we'll get to the difference between those two in a moment here. But one of the things that happens when we truly open and fall into oneness, fall into unity, step into our true nature, is we wake up and we realize a different reality is available to us. A different reality. So spiritual awakening basically gives you the direct experience that there is a new reality, an other reality. As the Buddha spoke, an original reality. And that's huge. And so the question is, for many of you, it's like, well, how long did that initial realization stick for? And so sometimes people come to me and say, Craig, I did whatever psychedelic, and I had this big experience. I say, okay, wow, that's a big experience. So after the 8 hours and that psychedelic wore off, were you still in the direct experience? Did you stay in the realization of the truth? And of course, everyone says, no, I didn't stay in it. But I know it and I remember it. And so remembering something is not realization. Remembering something is remembering something. That's all it is. It's like, okay, I had a big experience. I remember that. I remember the feeling of unity. But are you experiencing unity right now? So true realization, when it sticks, and now we're talking about something much more profound. And if it doesn't stick, I always like to look at, well, why not? Why not? So I shifted into something great. And then at some point, to shift out of that, you must have become distracted, confused, or a buried aspect of your unconscious came forward into the light. And again, there's no judgment about that. That's actually a good thing. Because then we invite the realization to go deeper, to be realized more fully. And so we want to be awake, not just on retreat, but we want to be awake in the world. In the world. We want to be awake on our deathbed. We want to be awake when we have COVID. We want to be awake when, our child is crying. We want to be awake when someone is giving us hell. And so then it becomes a question of, well, why do I shut down? Do I need to shut down? Like, do I need to shut down if someone's attacking me or rejecting me? And so at first you might just simply witness yourself shutting down. So you may be awake, but you're noticing the nervous system shut down out of habit. And then the question becomes, can you correct the habit? And all that means is just staying with the truth and letting the truth flow through you. When you let the truth flow through you, when you're committed to the truth, what you'll find is that the habit will burn out. It will course correct. And after doing this a number of times, what you find is the habit will begin to fall away. It'll fall away. And so with liberation, sometimes liberation comes through you actively saying yes to the truth. Sometimes liberation comes through you saying no to the untruth. And then more often than not, liberation comes on its own accord, which means there's no doing on your part. No doing on your part. Now, many of you, I'm sure, can remember back when you were in middle school and you thought that your self-image was everything. Your self-image is who and what you are. And so if you know, your image is about your hairdo, like when you're in middle school or high school. Me, when I was in middle school, I'm sorry, when I was in high school, I had dreadlocks. Like that was part of the image. All my friends had dreadlocks. Like, it was like a whole thing. We're all a bunch of dirty hippies. And we had this whole image. It'd be like this. And it meant so much to us that we all looked in this same way, looked and acted and spoke, listened to the same music. It was all about the image. And now I care less about the image. The image means nothing to me. It truly means nothing to me. And see, this is liberation. Liberation where something has fallen away. You know, I do have friends now who do have dreadlocks and those who have bald heads and everything in between. But I see them and I see their heart. I see their divinity. And I connect through this, not through image. And so all of us know the experience of liberation. Liberation is something that was once within us, something untrue, that has faded into the past and no longer accessible. No longer accessible. You just don't care about it anymore. And through time on the path, what you find is more and more things just begin to empty out of you. And liberation oftentimes is unseen. Like you don't even know it. But then later on, like someone might ask you about something that maybe you used to do. You're like, oh, gosh, I forgot. I forgot that was part of my life. You know, I can remember this happened with me and my relationship with my father, where my father, he was a tough fella, and he had a really hard time relating to me. He says he didn't know how to parent. And so basically he parented us like we were soldiers, and he just ordered us around and told us what to do. You know, pretty much for my whole life with him. And as a kid, I always felt so hurt by that. Like he didn't see me, didn't know me. He just treated me like I worked for him. And I can remember when I was an adult, you know, maybe 30 years old or something. And I went back to visit my mom and dad. And when I'd go back, I used to work on their house just because I had good skills just about with anything building related. And so say maybe I went back, let's say when I was 28, and he'd order me around, and I kind of like upset me. I was like, gosh, why has he got to be this way? And then when I came back at 30, the same thing, he ordered me around. And there was just something in me that was completely okay with it. And I didn't care in any way. Didn't care in any way. The way he treated me. I just saw him as someone who was in a lot of pain. But I was no longer his son, who he wasn't seeing and wasn't acknowledging and wasn't hearing. So that stuff, it fell away. Now, one of the reasons it did fall away is because I, over that, say, from 28 to 30 years, I did a lot of work around forgiveness. A lot of work around forgiveness. And what forgiveness really looked like was me fully feeling the anger that I had toward him, me fully feeling the sadness that I had toward him. And so in the past, I carried around all this sadness and anger. And through feeling it fully and releasing it, the natural state of forgiveness arose. I didn't even say, I forgive you. It was just after your pain has emptied out of you, forgiveness is the natural state. And when forgiveness is the natural state, well, liberation is the natural state, because with forgiveness, you're not holding on to anything. You don't hold on to anything. And so, getting back to the question, sometimes with realization is we just have a big spiritual experience, which is wonderful. Big fan of realization. But, what it's pointing out, if whenever you have a big realization, you will feel liberated. You'll feel there's no division between you and life. And that's what most people think of liberation as. I more look at liberation is cessation, like the Buddha taught. It means the thing that was once there is no longer there anymore. It ceased to be. One of my teachers once told me it's very much like, if you stay up late at night by a campfire, the fire's real raging at, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, you're throwing logs on it. But if you wake up, say at 2 or 3 in the morning, get out of your sleeping bag, and I'll just say this: you get up to go, take a leak or whatever, and you look at that fire, and there's some red embers there. So that's getting close to liberation. Now, the next morning, about at 8 a.m., that fire is just pure dust. There's no red hot heat there anymore. The thing has burnt itself out. And so normally, Nick, in response to your question, many, many years after realization, many years, let's say, at least 5 years after realization, we start moving into the realm of liberation. Things really start burning out. Now, one of the reasons I don't speak about liberation too much, well, let me say one more thing. It's through continued humility that we go from realization into liberation. The mistake most people make with realization is, instead of becoming really humble, they become really arrogant and aloof and spiritually bypass. And then they get themselves in trouble. So that's one thing. So the second thing I was wanting to say was, one of the reasons I don't like to speak too much about liberation is because often liberation is taught in this mythological way where, like the Buddha woke up and then he never had an emotion ever again in his life. And this is absolutely not true. That if you're a human being, realized or not, you will have a wide range of emotions for the entirety of your life. A wide range. Now, whether you act those emotions out in an unskillful and dramatic way that causes karma, well, that's different. So to the degree that one is liberated, they might still have emotions, or some simmerings at least of emotions, some grumblings of emotions, but it's not going to be so acted out. And so it's going to be more in the realm of calm and peace for great extended periods of time. But again, like if you're a fully liberated Buddha and your partner, we'll have some fun here, gets run over by a truck, I would hope you would scream and fall on your knees and cry. And now, because there'd be a human component where there's healthy attachment in life, where you realize, of course, my heart is broken. If your dog dies, sure, you're going to feel sad. You're going to shed some tears. Of course. If you see tragedy, or, if you hear about like this great genocide happening in China, or you see the destruction of the Amazon rainforest, you would expect the Buddhas whose heart is fully awake to shed some tears. So of course, so there's that. And just generally speaking, from a place of humility, humans are evolutionary beings. So they're always eternally going to be growing into infinity. And anytime any teacher speaks about liberation, there's almost like this unspoken, sometimes spoken teaching that the person would never feel or grow, and they live in this perfected way. And to me, that just ends up being a dangerous teaching. I've spoken a lot about that in the past. Okay, I think I did my part there. All right, let's hear from, is it Daniel? Let's see here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. We've actually never spoken before. I've sent you some emails, and I know your life was hectic for you, so but yeah, this is the first time we're speaking in person. So nice to make your acquaintance.
Yeah, it's good to meet you. Did I respond to your emails?
No.
Oh, forgive me.
Yeah, I know.
Forgive me.
It's all good. I know it's been a tough time for you, so I get it.
It's been a tough time, and I do get I could have a full-time job just answering emails. But anyways, well, Daniel, it's good to meet you. So what's on your mind?
Yeah, so I guess I have more of a practical question.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And it's kind of around discernment between when you've got a lot of sort of, I guess, painful energy going on in your body, and how to discern whether that's just kind of like the process of kundalini and when it's actually something medical. And the reason I ask is because about a year ago, a little less, I had a herniated disc and I had surgery for it. And it was the most painful experience of my life. And
the surgery or the pain?
No, not the surgery, but the herniated disc. And for the past few days, I've been having these sort of recurring symptoms of what it felt like when that was happening. And it's not necessarily painful, but it's like, it's like the exact same sort of symptom that was happening. And so, of course, when that happens, my mind goes nuts and goes, "Oh, this is happening again. This is happening again." And today was a pretty good day, but the past 3 days I've been sort of staving off panic about, "Oh my God, this is happening again. I don't want it to happen again."
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure. I mean, deep down, I'm pretty sure that it's just like this energetic process of clearing things out. And
Good. And so can you trust that?
Yeah, that's the key. Is that's my intention, and that's what I'm practicing with. But
yeah,
it's been hard.
Yeah. And so of course, I'm not going to BS you here. Like when there's pain, it's hard. But I invite you, instead of turning away from the pain, to turn right toward it, to open to it, to face it, to meet it, and to let it teach you. Let it teach you what it really is. See, when we have pain in our body, when we have discomfort, we call it pain. But we don't actually know what pain is. Like our ego, when it feels uncomfortable, it just says, this is bad, I don't like that. And it just kind of clenches and clamps down around it. And that's going to make it more difficult. All pain is simply energy. And all energy wants to flow. And so I encourage you to open to this and to let it flow. And so the practical thing here, I think you said this is a practical question, Craig. So if you have, a point of pain, whether, tell me where it is in your body.
My calf and my thigh.
Oh, that's an
my right
interesting
side.
place. Okay. Yeah, and your calf and in your thigh. So in your legs.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And so I invite you just to feel into your legs and just to open all around the legs. So not open in the hip, not open in the thigh, the calf, the knee, the shin. And just notice the spaciousness and the consciousness of the leg itself. It's like your subtle energetic body in the form of the leg. So you feel like kind of the whole thing. And then I invite you just to look at the points of pain. And to go into those points and just see if you can just imagine, like if they're kind of condensed like this, just imagine just going into them, almost like opening the doors and opening the windows there. And inviting that energy to flow. Inviting that energy to teach you. And so again, like this is going to require some humility. So we're not doing what the ego does. We go into the pain. We say, okay, I'm going to open to this. And I'm going to invite this energy to flow. I'm going to invite it to teach me, to show me something I don't know. And then see what comes of it. And don't be afraid if the energy intensifies. Often when we open to pain, it intensifies. It gets worse momentarily. And then it empties into the spaciousness. And then it might start to flow in a way or show us something that we didn't know. It's like, oh, there's a whole energetic channel here. I can't tell you how many times I opened to excruciating pain. And what I discovered was this most exquisite Amrita bliss. It's like, oh my God, this is really what was on the other side of pain was bliss. I can't even believe this is possible. What my mind was, I can't believe. But of course, it was happening. And then it happened so much. It's like, oh, and I stopped being afraid of pain. Okay, and so I encourage you to play with it. And again, like sometimes it comes with old thoughts and memories. Sometimes it's somatic stuff. And again, you just let the thoughts and memories flow and empty out without touching any of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just pure energy. It has no personality to it, just pure energy. And again, you just let it flow.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because just a few days before it started, I set this intention that I just wanted to be like at ease in my body. And then this started. So I'm wondering if this is part of the learning process of that. And
of course.
Learning to trust, learning to trust, like you said. So
yeah. Well, beautiful. Well, beautiful. So I encourage you to keep opening to it. And, the other thing too, like if you want ongoing support, better thing than emailing me and seeing if I respond is come to our Kundalini group on Friday, because all kinds of people in the group have, these types of energy experiences. That's a good place for you. And you're always welcome here. And please forgive me for not being able to fully do my job.
Yes, I get it. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Much love. And it's so nice to have you, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks.
Of course. Yeah. And I hope everyone really paid attention to that, because this is so much of the path, especially in a energetic mastery type of way, is that. And there's going to be times in life when pain comes to you, and the ego always thinks it knows what pain is. But if you open to pain, you might find that, oh, this is something quite different than what I had imagined. Something maybe even quite enjoyable. Or quite healing, quite liberating. Okay. Let's see. Robert, are you here?
Yeah. Hi, Craig. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Hey, Robbie. Good to see you.
Okay. So it's kind of a really personal, but hopefully it relates to somebody. So it's more like a meditations type question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really, really lost right now. It's like my body is in constant fight or flight. And like during Wednesday meditations, it's like at its most intense. My heart is just racing. It's like I'm like fighting myself to just relax. It's like the opposite of what should be happening.
What is your body afraid of during meditation or right now? Like, what is it afraid is going to happen?
Well, during meditation, it's like when I first, it all happened after I felt the light of grace.
Mm-hmm.
I had this experience for like half an hour of the meditation, and I was just like crying and just completely surrendered to it. And then,
so when you were crying, were those like tears of joy or just tears of surrender? It wasn't tears of fear, right?
No, it's just so like cathartic, just like,
okay, good.
And so like, oh, I want to have that experience again. Like this is something that's these meditations are going to be very important for me. And so ever since that meditation, not only during meditations but out of meditations, my body is just in fight or flight, and it's really hard on me. So I'm like, okay, I got to deal with this, because this is like really hard on my body to be constantly in a state of anxiety.
Of course.
And so during the Wednesday meditations, right when I like, my heart is just beating right when I start to feel the heat of the light of grace. Like my body is just fighting it. Like my heart is just like beating so hard, so much adrenaline. And so it's just like, I don't know what to do now. Like,
okay, so Robbie, let's do this. So your eyes are, so just close your eyes. So if you just feel into this fear, you feel into the beating heart, the panic, and just in a loving way, if you ask, like, what are we afraid of here? Like, what's the fear? You fully allow the fear to speak to you from a place of compassion, from a place of love.
What is, it's just, it's the process of like, oh, something happened, and it's, oh, something's happening, and letting go fully.
And so I'm afraid to let go, because I'm afraid what will happen. Like if I let go, what might happen?
it's like consciously, I'm like so pumped. I'm like, I want this to happen so bad, but my
So,
body.
I'm not talking to the conscious part. I want to talk to the unconscious part. So this is where we want to have compassion for the place that's unconscious, for the place that's struggling. And so if you feel into him and just maybe even ask him hey, hey, buddy, what do you need? How can I help? How can I help you?
Well, it's just really sad, and it just wants a lot of it wants to establish a link of trust.
Good, good. And so one of the ways that he's going to feel trust is if you acknowledge his sadness, you breathe into his sadness, you hold him, just letting him know, it's okay. I see you, and I love you, and I care. So this is what he's going to want to know from you. And he's going to want to know that from God. But I think he's kind of too amped up to really hear it, receive it from God right now. And so he needs to hear it from you, that he's seen, he's heard, he's loved. And so you're fully respecting this part of you, not pushing him into letting go, not forcing him to let go. Not saying I'm going to put you in the light of grace. We're going to light you on fire, burn you at a stake like Joan of Arc or something. We're not doing that,
That's my style.
Yeah. Okay, good. So just to soften around that and just to let this real tender part of us, this scared part of us know, hey, this grace is here for you too. And so we're going to hold you, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to care. I'm going to communicate with you.
So what I wanted to say for a personal point of view is, what should I do from a personal practice? When I meditate every day, how many hours a day should I spend with this?
Okay, so just hold on. Where do you feel this fear in your body?
It's just my heart and my chest is super tight. And my heart is just pounding.
So you take your two hands, your holy healing hands, put them on your heart, and just breathing into your heart, holding your heart. I just want you to work with a real basic mantra, it's okay, or I love you, and it's okay. And we just need to get your heart connected to a quiet sense of trust that you and your heart are on the same team. You and the sphere, the same team, you're loving it, supporting it, compassionately embracing it. Okay, you're not pushing it off a cliff into a land of Buddha nature or anything like that. We're just holding, loving your heart. Maybe going on little walks and doing this, laying in bed and doing this. Maybe even rubbing your heart a little bit, just letting you know, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Letting that kid inside, because the kid inside, he doesn't feel fundamentally safe. To me, it feels like he's going to be abandoned, right? Or is that what it is?
It's just something happened once that was very powerful, and that scares me to happen again.
So the thing that happened once that was powerful was
during Wednesday night meditation,
that a lot of light came.
Yeah, I've never experienced it before. Just my whole body was so hot that I had no choice but to go into it, not look at it, but I just went into it and let it self-experience the heat. I just cried and just bathed in the heat.
Yeah, good. So again, we're just reminding our body and this part of us, this heat is simply love. It's a purifying love. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So part of it's like smiling and normalizing around it, breathing into it, just again, trusting that this light is not here to kill you. It's here to heal you. It's a good thing.
So when you're working with people that are going through this stage where their heart is going crazy, like how many hours of meditation per day do you say? What kind of meditation?
Yes. So I'd say less is more. Okay. I'm not going to give you an hours or anything like that, but the thing is when we have, let's just say, whenever we have lots of resistance, I invite you to meditate upon that which is resistant. Okay. And by meditate upon, I mean be radically compassionate to the place within us that's scared. So we're holding, we're loving, we're embracing the fear. So right now, that's going to be the point of meditation, because this part of you is like so amped up and so resistant that it's really hard to receive, because it's all like on fire. Good.
It's crazy.
And so,
it's going to take like a year to get over.
So here's the thing is, I want you to imagine there's a kid in the room who's scared, and he's just like sitting like right next to you. And you're saying, Craig, like, how long until he is gone? Like, that doesn't make him feel safe, right? That makes him feel like, like he's bad and judged and he shouldn't be here. And so the attitude you're having towards him is, hey, little buddy, I will love you until the end of time. I love you to the end of the time. So we're going to let go of any thought about how long it's going to take. I'm going to put our arm around him and say, I'm going to love you till the end of time. You and me, bud. You and me, bud. I'm going to love you till the end of time. Because I want you to imagine that, like, say like my little girl was next to me and she was really difficult, and I was talking to you about how difficult she is. And like, when the hell is this girl not going to be so difficult? Like, she's going to be like, she's going to feel judged and shamed and shut down and probably more resistant to me. And so again, we want to just compassionately love and embrace this part of ourselves. So, so the great saint who just passed away, Thich Nhat Hanh, he wrote a book, that probably has like 100 practices in relationship to this. It's called something like Healing the Wound with Your Inner Child. It's something like that. Embracing the inner child, compassion towards the inner child, something like that. If you Google Thich Nhat Hanh, inner child, he's written probably 60 books or something, but this is one that's really helpful. And it's just full of just short little practices, and it helps you have this relationship where it's just loving this part of you. Loving this part of you.
And is this like is this like a phase that everybody goes through?
Everyone goes through this to a greater or lesser degree. So if the inner child is really feeling abandoned and ignored and has experienced a lot of trauma, then this tends to be a lot more difficult. If the inner child hasn't had much trauma and has had a really good life and good parenting, it's not such a big deal. But again, either way, like, I don't want you to look for any way to make yourself wrong. The basic truth with compassion is, if it's happening in me, whatever it is worthy of love and compassion. And so, like, I had tremendous issues with anger because I grew up in a house where, someone screamed at me like all the time. And so, like, I had to do a lot of work around anger. Then I can say, well, is this normal? It's like, well, it's normal if you grew up in the kind of house you did, Craig. You grew up with, alcoholism. Yeah. You grew up with a drill sergeant dad. Sure, it's normal. Is it normal for everyone? No, everyone has a little bit different life. Okay, but is it normal, and how long is it going to take? Again, all these are irrelevant questions. The question is how can I love this more fully? And the funny thing is when you love things that are difficult fully, they begin to dissolve and empty out of you, and then they're no longer a problem. So quickest way to heal something that's resistant in us is we just overwhelmingly love it with compassion. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. And good to see you, Robbie. And I just want to acknowledge for everyone, the point of this is God often gives us something that seems real difficult. And the whole point is it helps us to awaken to unconditional love. And it's brilliant because, it's like we can't deny it. Like if we try to deny it, it just stays resistant. And so it's like, okay, I have to learn about love. And so then love and learning how to love and compassion, learning how to be compassionate becomes the object of our meditation, becomes our life. And when loving and compassion is our life, we begin to heal really efficiently and quickly. So the incentive here is the more you love yourself, the quicker you'll heal. And so that's the whole time thing. Like, how long is this going to take? Well, the more you love yourself, the quicker it'll go. The more you ignore yourself, the longer it will take. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good to see you. Okay. Let's see here. Do everything. All right. Richard, do you have a question for us, Richard? Short, clear, and direct, please. I don't know if Richard, are you here, Richard?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Totally. Hey, everybody. Good to see you. I was just laughing with my partner that as things get late and you feel more cramped for time, you're short, clear, direct. Okay, let's get at it here.
No more messing around. No more messing around.
That's right.
And keep in mind, I'm also saying that to my own self. So I'm saying that to my own self. Is short, clear, and direct, Craig.
And you never follow your own advice, Craig.
I don't.
Come on.
I don't.
Yeah, Craig, my question might feel a little abstract, but it's something that I'm just coming into, and I'm really curious about your experience with it. So my whole life, I've just thought, like, as long as I'm vertically aligned, then it's all good. Like if in the vertical, in the descent, it is right, then I should act, and the horizontal plane will take care of itself. But I've experienced some things recently where it was like, oh, this is vertically right on, but horizontally either it's not appropriate right now, right? So I have to back off, or perhaps horizontally it'll never be appropriate.
What do you mean by appropriate? Would you clarify that?
Yeah. So 2 examples. One of them is someone who I started to like just develop feelings for and fell in love with, but they're married and in a monogamous relationship, right? So it was like, okay, unless or until their relational structure changes, it's actually not appropriate to connect with this person in this way, right? Because not everybody involved is included, which would be that person's partner. But in another way, I've also felt really vertically aligned around like, oh, moving to Brazil. It's been like 3 years, like moving to Brazil. It's just so vertical, just continues to hit me over and over. But horizontally, it's like that makes 0 sense. And I get that in some respect, there can be like, if there's vertical alignment, you go and do it, things will take care of themselves. But I'm also running into this, that's been my whole life. Vertical, go. But now I'm running into this like, okay, there's vertical, but now what does it mean for the vertical to integrate with the horizontal? And that the horizontal has say. It's not just vertical and go and nothing else. It's like, oh no, there's this horizontal aspect. And it is also feeding in and has say in what is appropriate. Okay, you got me. So I would just love to hear about more.
Yeah. No, that's a beautiful question. Gosh, I actually had that happen with me recently as well. And anytime it does, is I just look at God and I say, like, what's going on here? Will you show me the truth? Show me how this plays out. And so the basic thing I do is I wait and I see. I wait and I see. And what I found in the past is sometimes like it's vertically aligned and it's absolutely the truth, but the horizontal might need 1 year, 3 years, a decade. It might need a lifetime, you know, for this thing to come. And so, you know, oftentimes it's a patience game. And what most of us find is when we're really vertically aligned, so we're just connected to these great truths, you might receive vision after vision after vision, and it's just absolutely true what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. But this world is not yet ready for it. It's not yet ready. Like this world needs some time to grow and to evolve and to come into alignment. And so the vision and the truth always comes first. Like if you look at, say, like the life of Gandhi, you know, he had a vision of unified India. Him and Aurobindo had a vision of unified India, you know, 30, 40 years, whatever, before it actually happened. And part of being spiritually hooked up vertically is, from a human perspective, it can be radically frustrating. Radically frustrating. You know, Aurobindo had just tremendous frustration. The mother had tremendous frustration. Any great visionary will live with frustration because they see what's possible. They feel it. They feel it in their body. And sometimes life will give them little glimpses of, yes, this is possible. And then the greater life, which is going to include the unconscious, will say like, hey, not yet. Not yet. And of course, you know, oftentimes, you know, we can admit just from a human perspective, it's like, okay, maybe my vision was wrong. Maybe I was a little high that night or whatever on grace. And so, you know, again, like I'll ask God, like, is this the truth? God will show me the same vision again. And I'll say, okay, then you show me how this happens. And oftentimes I'll have my feet, you know, in the earth, so on the horizontal plane. And I'll look at God and I'll challenge God. I'll say, okay, God, you show me. You show me how this works out. You show me. You show me. Show me what it is. Or take it, you know, the opposite. So say, you know, I'm just seeing something horizontally. And it's like, God, like, what the hell are you doing here? What are you doing in this world? You show me how this world is vertically aligned. You show it to me. And when we look at like at the pandemic and, you know, just what's going on in life, planet Earth, and we can be in that horizontal truth. And I mean the truth, not the unconscious, but the truth of us. And we can look to the horizontal plane and say, God, like, where are you? Like, what's your deal? Because your ultimate reality, it doesn't look like it's playing out the way this ultimate reality is playing out. And so that's one of the things about being a human being is when we're really hooked up, we can live in one or both of these, and we can make a demand of God. We can challenge God and say, hey, like, you know, the same way a child challenges a parent, like, hey, parent, I need you to grow up. I need you to grow up. And the parent wakes up and says, oh, okay, I do need to grow up. The child is saying something true and real here. And this is the paradox of being human. And, it's okay to admit that it is a frustrating paradox at times. Like sometimes, like when I used to go to the science and non-duality conference, when, before the pandemic was a thing, we'd have all these spiritual teachers coming together, and there'd be 600 people in a big auditorium, and people talking about these possibilities and everything that's changing and growing, and everyone's waking up. And you just feel such a truth, such an aliveness. And then, it's like you go out a little bit later, in the week in the world, and it's like, oh my God, this is not what is happening. The world is saying, no, it's 2022, and this is where we're at. This is where we're at. It's just, it's silly sometimes. It is literally silly. Evolution. Because in the mind of God, and when you're in the realm of the absolute, anything's possible, and it's possible in an instant. But when you're in the horizontal plane, there's a lot different type of possibility that's available, and often it requires time. It's gonna be, like pulling a bunch of cement bricks up a mountain. It's like, geez, this is taking forever, and this is dragging, and it's messy, and and so anyways, beautiful question. And of course, we just go forward with humility, and sometimes God, I think, even throws us curveballs to just straight up confuse us, to kind of just to keep us just humble, kind of keep us guessing a little bit, and like make sure, okay, like, do I really know what the truth is? Like, am I really aligned? I'm going to look again. And I've seen that before. Like, I know something without a shadow of a doubt, and I go through the biggest curveball, I'll be like, like, did I really know that? Like, is that really what I saw? And and again, the other thing we want to be real careful about is that the emotional nature doesn't get involved in any way, because once the emotional nature gets involved and it has its attachments and agendas, we can get we can bullshit our own self. And that's something I found too, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go in there and it'll be 1, 2, 3, boom, done. And it's like, oh no, like I got too big for my britches, too ahead of myself, or I was projecting too much or whatever. And sometimes God will throw us something to help us develop a greater sense of humility. So anyways, a beautiful question. Yeah, that was fun. Okay. All right, let's see, I guess Kyle has a question now. Let me just check the chat. I saw all kinds of stuff pop up. Okay, Kyle, I'm going to say the same thing I said to Richard: short, clear, direct, please and thank you.
Hello, Craig. It's me asking the question.
Oh yeah, hi. It's Melanie, right?
Right.
Yeah, Melanie, what's going on?
So it feeds probably into the questions that were asked before. I want to know if it's very, very common that when you have a breakthrough and you were actually standing in your purpose, the thing you're destined to do here, that you get the feet, the floor rubbed off under your feet, and that life challenges you so bad and everything breaks down, and everything seems as if, no, okay, this cannot have been my path, this cannot have been true, but every time you turn back to that, it's, but I know it is my path, but I know this is what I'm destined to do. Is that very common?
Yeah, absolutely. It teaches you just resilient faith and resilient trust. It gives you incredible strength. Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, like in modern culture, like the story of this is Rocky, you know, it's like he knows he's a champion, but boy, is he just get knocked down and knocked down and knocked down and knocked down. And then finally, you know, he gets up again. You know, he gets up 100 times. And on the 101st time, he realizes and knows himself as the champion. And so, of course, it's an archetypal journey. It's a journey in spiritual awakening. It's how you're awakening, how liberation becomes forged in you as you. So I can't tell you how many times I've been knocked down, humiliated, humbled, you know, just been like, oh my God, like what just happened here? And, you know, just utter defeat. And the question is always like, you know, are you a person of truth? When you're a person of truth, you walk in the direction of the truth. And if someone knocks you down, pulls the carpet out from under you, if your car gets a flat tire, you run out of gas, you get in a train wreck, you get long haul COVID, you get whatever sickness, disease, you break a leg, ankle, this and that, the relationship falls apart, you lose all your money, you keep walking in the direction of the truth. You keep walking in the direction of the truth. I mean, if you looked like the life of Christ, I mean, his final moments here on planet Earth were of utter defeat and humiliation. And still, he's like, okay, I'm still going forward. I'm still going to do the resurrection thing. I'm still going forward. I'm still going forward. I'm still going to shine my light into the darkness. It'd be easy, you know, for him to say, well, but they nailed me to a cross, so I might as well give up. And he didn't. He's like, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to go show up to Paul who persecuted Christians. I'm going to go hunt down Paul, and I'm going to shine my light into the heart of a persecutor. Like, that's how much love. That's how he was such a man of truth. And so, of course, your life will be the same. And keep in mind, the intelligence of it is it builds the muscles of strength. Just absolute faith. Absolute faith. And see, most of us on the spiritual path, we think that awakening is just something that happens to us. And then we've all been sold this fairy tale that after awakening happens to us, then we're just on the fairy tale unicorn rainbow ride into heaven. And we have $1 million. We have a best-selling spiritual book. We have 10,000 followers or 10 million, whatever. And, you know, God doesn't do it that way. God gives you a big realization, then knocks you down and asks, do you still believe? Yes, I still believe. Then you walk forward in the truth. And you start to walk forward a little further up the mountain, and then God knocks you down. Says, are you sure you still believe? You're like, oh yeah, God, I still believe. And then you keep walking further. And after God knocks you down a number of times, you realize you can't really get knocked down anymore. That what you are is strength. What you are is faith. What you are is love. And you are it. You've realized it. You've earned it because you've become it. You know it to be your own self. Not you earned it because you willed and efforted it so great. No, you realize it. You know it because there's a light here that does not go out, that cannot be extinguished. You know, with Gandhi, he had this great desire for a free India without British control. He went into jail so many times. He spent years and years in jail. And when he was in jail, he fell in love with the prison guards. Like that's how much love he had. He wasn't in there with his head down, hating, angry, upset. He said, okay, like this is part of the path. That's the kind of strength and faith he had. He kept showing up. Kept showing up. And it became this unquestionable thing where we just live the truth. No matter how it feels and what's happening externally becomes irrelevant. And so anyways, you go forward into the light. Go forward into the light. Head held high, even when they're kicking you down, head held high. So nice to be with you all. Keep looking over here at my Facebook land. I don't know if I can find the comments or if they're here or not, but anyways, lots of love to you in Facebook land. Lots of love to y'all in Zoom land. My heart is with each of you. So I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Good night, everyone. See you next time.